You know, think about those people you know who just have this presence. They don't necessarily need to be the loudest one there, right? Or always doing something, always talking.
Yeah, sometimes it's the opposite. It's in their quietness.
Exactly. Their stillness, maybe when they choose not to speak, that's where they seem to hold real power. And it makes you think, have you ever felt that pressure, that unspoken thing where you got to be always on, always reachable?
Oh, definitely. Always ready to respond.
Well, today we're diving into this really fascinating idea that by intentionally pulling back, choosing silence, choosing retreat, you can actually shift the power dynamics around you.
Yeah.
In pretty surprising way.
Right. And it's not about just, disappearing completely.
Yeah.
It's more deliberate than that.
Like a conscious choice.
Exactly. A conscious choice to redirect your energy, your attention. We're looking at what happens when you're not always available on demand. Emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically. And as we'll explore today, this shift, it can actually create a bit of a crisis almost for the people around you.
A crisis? That sounds intense.
Well, think about it. They get used to a certain rhythm, right? They expect access, they expect a response. When that changes, it unsettles things.
That unease or crisis idea, it hits home actually. Because if you're always available, people kind of learn how to manage you through your reactions.
Yeah, they know your buttons.
Totally. They know what pushes them because they know you'll react. But if you become less predictable, if you bring in that withdrawal,
the old game doesn't work anymore.
Right. And suddenly maybe those people who thought they had you all figured out, they realize they were just seeing what they expected to see.
And what's really revealing there is who gets the most, let's say, ruffled when you become less accessible.
Okay.
Carl Jung had that great insight. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves.
I like that.
So apply that here. Who gets desperate? Who gets irritated by your silence? Who tries to poke you, provoke a reaction?
Yeah.
Often, their reaction says way more about their need for control, maybe their manipulative tendencies, than it says about you doing anything wrong.
Because you've disrupted their usual flow, their expected energetic exchange.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You've changed the pattern they were comfortable with.
Wow. And it makes you think how much energy we pour into just smoothing things over, keeping the peace, trying not to lose people.
Even people who maybe aren't really looking out for us anyway.
Right. It's like every time you force yourself to agree or send that instant text back when you really need space, or you have that emotional reaction you regret later.
You're giving a piece of yourself away.
Yeah. And it leaves you feeling just drained, empty almost. And you don't always know why.
Like you're constantly trying to fill someone else's needs at your own expense. And connecting this to psychology, there's this idea of ego depletion. Our self-control, our willpower. It's like a muscle. It gets tired if you overuse it.
Yeah.
Constantly reacting, constantly giving. You're just depleting that resource.
It's leaving you drained.
Exactly. And often, this overavailability is directed at people who don't really appreciate it. They don't value the effort. Which brings us back to Jung, actually, and his idea of individuation.
Individuation, becoming whole, authentic.
Yes, becoming truly yourself. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
This journey, becoming more fully you. It often starts when you recognize that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't argue or explain, it's just silence.
Wow.
And choosing to step back consciously, not just avoiding things, but choosing it. That's actually a huge power move.
It really flips the script. And it makes you ask yourself, doesn't it? How long are you going to let other people's emotions, their demands, control your state?
How long will you keep reacting like their puppet?
Yeah. Oof. It's a tough question.
It is. Because we have this deeply ingrained belief, often, that our value comes from being available.
We're taught that, aren't we? Be helpful, be present, be responsive. That's being good.
Exactly. But this deep dive challenges that. It suggests maybe that excessive availability isn't a virtue at all. Maybe it's, a kind of prison?
A prison you build yourself.
In a way, yeah. A prison that leads to being taken for granted, feeling exhausted, and maybe even being forgotten once you're not immediately useful anymore.
That image, being an emotional emergency button.
It's stark, isn't it?
It really is. You're just there to be pushed when someone needs attention or validation, then dropped until the next time.
And we often fall into it hoping, maybe subconsciously, that if we're always there for others, they'll be there for us in the same way.
But it doesn't always work out like that.
No. Often it doesn't. And this ties into another Jungian idea, the persona.
The mask we wear?
The mask, yeah. The face we show the world to get acceptance, to feel loved.
Yeah.
And that persona can drive this over-availability. Well, it makes us say it's okay when we're actually drowning. It makes us reply instantly when we need quiet. It makes us feel we have to constantly over-explain ourselves.
Like you need permission just to be.
Right. It's like you're always performing on someone else's stage.
And the more energy you put into their show,
the less you have for your own life. You fade from your own center. This constant availability, it can be a subtle kind of self-abandonment.
Wow, self-abandonment, that's powerful. All because you're looking for something outside yourself.
Exactly. And seeking that external validation just depletes your inner resources. And those resources, that vital energy, it's not infinite.
It's limited. We forget that.
We do. And it's insightful to think about what people who demand constant availability actually want from you.
Okay.
Often it's not really you, the whole person, they want. It's what you provide.
Like validation, comfort, a distraction.
Could be any of those. A listening ear, maybe. Emotional support. So when you start changing that dynamic, maybe setting a boundary, choosing not to react instantly.
They get irritated.
They might. Or they might accuse you of changing, of being difficult. But the key insight here is, it's not necessarily because you've become worse. It's because you've stopped being functional for them in that specific way.
You're not fulfilling their expected role anymore.
Precisely. Which leads to this really counterintuitive point.
Okay, I'm ready.
The more available you make yourself, sometimes the less value others might actually place on you. Subconsciously, perhaps?
Wait, really? More available means less valuable.
Think about the analogy used in our source material. Something abundant, always there, easily accessed. It can become like an emotional rag.
Ouch. An emotional rag.
Take for granted because it wasn't really earned, it's just always there.
That really forces you to pause and think. Who actually deserves your time, your energy, your presence, and maybe even your absence?
Exactly. Who deserves those incredibly precious resources? And to understand that better, we can bring in Jung's concept of psychic energy.
Psychic energy, like our mental and emotional fuel.
Kind of, yeah. It's the fundamental drive behind our thoughts, feelings, actions. And it's a limited supply.
Okay.
So the big question is, are you consciously choosing where that energy goes? Or are you just letting the world, letting other people's demands decide for you?
It's so easy to get caught in those automatic reactions, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Feeling you have to defend yourself against every little criticism, getting sucked into pointless arguments.
Trying to please people who honestly don't really value you anyway.
All of that. It's a huge drain on that psychic energy, isn't it?
A massive drain.
Yeah.
Your inner reserves just leak away. And think about that Jungian idea again. That which you resist persists.
So the more you react emotionally?
The more you keep it alive. You give it your energy, you keep it stuck in your head.
And if you're emotionally drained?
You become more vulnerable. Vulnerable to manipulation, to people who sense you don't have strong boundaries, who know you'll react predictably.
Makes sense.
Jung believed a healthy psyche knows how to contain its energy, how to manage it.
Which means?
It means learning to say no without the guilt trip. Choosing silence sometimes instead of jumping in, observing before acting.
So real power isn't the immediate reaction.
No, it's the conscious choice about when and how to engage. And that takes self-awareness, knowing your triggers, your impulses.
Like those nights you lie awake replaying a conversation or stewing over something someone said.
That's your psychic energy just leaking out, wasted.
Right.
Compare that to well-guarded psychic energy. It's almost like a force field.
Yeah.
An invisible presence.
So you can walk into a room and have impact without saying a word?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
There's a certain respect that comes with that containment. But if your energy is poorly managed, you feel, well, maybe reactive, fragile, even invisible sometimes.
So the first step is noticing your triggers. What makes you react automatically?
Exactly. Those are your energy leak points. The goal isn't to be cold or shut off. It's about being selective, being the ruler of your own energy.
Okay, selectivity, not coldness.
Right. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Jung suggested that when you consciously conserve this energy, you start to break the projections others put onto you.
Projections, like when people see things in you that are actually about them.
Precisely. Attributing their own stuff, thoughts, feelings, traits they don't acknowledge in themselves onto someone else.
And the more available and reactive you are,
the more you become like a blank screen for those projections.
oh wow.
Think about it. The friend who's always in crisis mode, needing your help? The partner who constantly needs saving? Are those relationships really about you?
Or are they about a role I'm playing?
Exactly. A role you might have slipped into, maybe because you're afraid of disappointing them or not being loved or being abandoned.
And manipulation? It doesn't have to be obvious, does it?
Not at all. Often it's subtle. It works through that silence of guilt.
Silence of guilt.
That feeling you have to be available. You have to help. You have to understand, even if it costs you dearly. The manipulator doesn't need to force you. They just need you to keep reacting in that same old way.
So the way to break it is stop reacting.
Yes. Say no. Choose silence. Withdraw your immediate response. That disrupts the game, and those projections start to crumble.
And that's when things can get uncomfortable for them.
Right, because they're suddenly forced to look at themselves, not at the role you were playing for them. They have to face their own. Well, Jung called it the shadow.
Their unacknowledged stuff.
Exactly. Remember Jung's quote, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your withdrawal can actually force them to confront their darkness.
So if someone starts criticizing you or getting dramatic when you pull back.
It might not mean you're wrong.
Yeah.
It might mean you've stopped being their convenient mirror.
Okay. So the real question then becomes, am I ready for that? Ready to be misunderstood, maybe? Even attacked for protecting myself?
And ready for the silence that follows that choice? It's a big question.
It is. Because that silence, it's not just empty, is it?
Not according to Jung, no. It's powerful. It's a conscious, strategic, brutally lucid silence. It's not passive, it's amplified presence.
Fertile ground.
Fertile ground for inner transformation, yeah. When you stop the constant reacting, you finally get the space to observe.
Observe what?
Patterns, your own emotional loops, other people's manipulation games, your own self-sabotage. You see things clearly for the first time.
And your silence takes away their control over the narrative.
Exactly. You change the rules just by not playing the old game. It unbalances those who thrived on your reactions.
So true silence isn't just being quiet, it's mastery.
Mastery over your own energy.
Yeah.
Refusing to be dragged down by other people's emotional chaos. Jung saw individuation as requiring this kind of distancing, listening to yourself in that quiet space, free from all the external noise.
But there's a price, potentially.
There can be. You might create distance from people who only valued your utility, your function. You might seem puzzling to those who only saw your persona.
They might call you cold or selfish.
They might. But often, those reactions reveal more about their dependence on your previous availability than about your character now.
And as you get more, I guess, mature, you become more selective anyway.
You tend to, yes. You start understanding words themselves as energetic investments. Silence then becomes, a kind of sovereignty for people who don't need to prove anything anymore.
Your silence makes them uncomfortable because they have to sit with their own thoughts.
Often, yes. You don't need to explain your absence. It speaks for itself. And those threatened by it, they just reveal how much they relied on your imbalance.
But the real power isn't even about them, is it? It's internal.
Exactly. The most powerful silence is the one that reconstructs you from the inside, connects you to something deeper than just getting approval from others.
That inner space.
Yeah.
That's where you recover that vital energy, reconnect with yourself.
That's the core of it. It's about reclaiming your essence, which leads to the crucial next step.
Okay.
Learning to consciously choose where that recovered energy goes, where you invest it wisely, and where you absolutely refuse to waste it, becoming truly selective.
Right, because just understanding this intellectually, that's not enough, is it?
Not at all. It's just theory until you put it into practice.
So you actually have to stop saying yes when you mean no, stop replying instantly to bothersome messages, disengage from draining relationships.
Yes, that's conscious unavailability in action. It's not about being mean. It's taking control.
Yeah.
Your energy, your time, your peace, they're yours to manage.
And it starts small.
Often, yes. Small, concrete actions like just pause, breathe before you react to that email that triggers you.
Okay.
Don't feel you have to reply to every single message right away.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to leave a conversation that feels toxic or chaotic.
Turn off your phone without feeling guilty about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And practice saying no, just simply no when you need to.
And you don't owe everyone a massive explanation.
You really don't. Your absence, your silence, you don't need to justify it constantly. You owe that respect to yourself first. And yeah, that simple act can feel, unforgivable. to people who counted on you always being predictable.
It's like that Jungian idea of isolation being sacred for individuation.
Exactly. It's not about being antisocial forever. It's about that necessary inner retreat.
Yeah.
A time to actually hear your own voice again, away from all the noise.
To rebuild your identity from your center, not based on what others expect.
Right. And those thermometers you mentioned earlier. Who distances themselves when you set boundaries? Who tries to provoke you? Who accuses you of changing?
Those aren't necessarily bad signs.
They can actually be signs of progress, indicators that you're shifting something real.
But it probably feels uncomfortable at first. Guilt, feeling selfish.
Oh, almost certainly. That's the old conditioning breaking down, the lifetime habit of putting everyone else first. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
So conscious unavailability is like the foundation of self-determination.
Beautifully put. Saying no to the world's demands is often saying yes to yourself.
But that process, that emotional distancing, it can cause ripples, right? Maybe even break relationships.
It can. It can expose wounds, lead to difficult conversations, sometimes pain, loneliness, estrangement. It's not always easy.
But maybe that feeling of loss is actually freeing you.
That's the perspective shift. Seeing it not just as loss, but as shedding what wasn't truly serving your authentic self. Which brings us to the idea of a kind of rebirth.
Okay, the rebirth after the distancing.
Yes, and embracing what might feel like the loneliness of the strong, but seeing it as the path to real freedom.
So what does that look like, that transformation?
Well, initially that inner silence might feel awkward, uncomfortable. You might question yourself.
Sure.
But gradually that feeling can shift. It becomes less like emptiness and more like clean space, calmness. It's actually quite cleansing.
And that leads to that solitude of total presence.
Yes. It's not about being alone in a lacking way. It's about being whole within yourself. Finally present to yourself because you're not betraying yourself anymore just to keep others happy or close.
So confusion gives way to clarity, anxiety to peace.
Exactly. Neediness starts to fade, replaced by genuine inner strength. Remember, Jung saw individuation as requiring some distancing from the collective noise, stepping away from the persona.
Walking your own path for a while.
Yes. So choosing unavailability isn't running away. It's returning to yourself, sifting from just reacting to life to actually creating your experience.
And those people who get upset by your absence.
They often reveal they wanted the role you played, not the real you.
So you might lose some connections.
You might. But you find yourself, you distance yourself from some things, but you reconnect with your own core. And here's the paradox.
Go on.
When you're no longer available for just anything,
Yeah.
you actually become more valuable, rarer, unforgettable in a way. It is a kind of rebirth.
So it all comes down to a shift in what you accept. Only what resonates with your peace. Your truth?
Your wholeness, yes. And if you're listening to this and it's striking a chord, maybe a part of you is already ready for this. Already understands that self-love has to come first.
Before seeking it outside.
Exactly.
So maybe the final question for everyone listening is the one you posed earlier.
Are you ready? Ready to potentially be misunderstood, maybe rejected, even criticized, all in the name of your own inner freedom?
Are you willing to pay that price? The price of truly being you?
It's something profound to reflect on.
Definitely. Take some time with that. It's such a personal journey, this whole idea of reclaiming power through conscious unavailability.
But ultimately, it's a path towards, hopefully, real inner peace and genuine strength.